Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. There's only really one thing that's really dominating the news within the world of football right now, and that is of course in regards to the huge fan protest that took place yesterday at Old Trafford with Manchester United. I'm going to be talking about everything that took place yesterday. I'm going to be talking about the protests in general. I'm going to be talking about the good and the ugly side of them protests, as well as talk about Sky's and the Premier League's response to them. Before we go any further though, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated. But for now, let's get back to talking about these fan protests that took place yesterday in and around Old Trafford. It was just huge news. It dominated the entirety of the day, and it was just major in the fallout to this European Super League thing. But for Manchester United, of course, this is not just a battle that has started 2 weeks ago with the rise and fall of the European Super League. This is a battle that's been going on with the Glazers for many years. And yesterday saw incredible scenes at and inside Old Trafford as United supporters in their hundreds protested inside the stadium, on the pitch, and also outside of the stadium too. It was a major demonstration that overshadowed the entirety of the day, like I mentioned, so much so that the Manchester United versus Liverpool game that was set to kick off at 4:30 that afternoon was initially delayed before being cancelled entirely. Supporters stormed Old Trafford in protest against the Glazers, all uniting with the simple message of Glazers Out. And overall, this was an incredible way of getting your message out there and doing this in what most people have said is the best possible way, with a few exceptions. Now, before I go on, I would like to say that, as I mentioned, these protesters have had a few exceptions to their name because of how a small minority of numbers of protesters have allegedly gone a bit too far during these protests. There were a few stories that came out yesterday to show these protesters in a negative way because of reports that a few people got injured in some way from them. And whilst myself and others obviously shouldn't accept and support these kind of actions of it getting a little out of hand and people overstepping the mark, so to speak, don't let it completely distract you from the main point of this. Don't let it completely distract you from the key part of why these protests happen in the first place, because them kind of things will happen. When you get big groups together, these kind of things will happen. Just think about getting together with some of your mates at your local pub or club, obviously before COVID, and you know, you'll see that on any kind of Friday, Saturday night, any kind of other night. Like, small minority of people will take it too far when you get a large gathering of people together, and there's no exception here. But the overall point here is that whether you're a Manchester United fan or a fan of the other 5 clubs that are on the verge of joining these European Super League plans, or you just have these owners that you perceive to be terrible owners that are just taking money and taking money and taking money and taking you for granted all of these years, and you can throw Arsenal into that category. You know, something had to give somewhere along the way, and you know, the plan here was to obviously make these greedy, selfish billionaire owners take notice of fans and give them a voice back within their club. And I think it's safe to say that United fans have somewhat achieved that yesterday. They at least won one kind of battle yesterday, and it was on a very big scale. It obviously was promoted globally, these protests, and you know, stopped arguably the biggest game of football there is to play at club level. And if we can focus on just United here for just this part of the video, they've wanted their owners out for many years and has protested for many years in doing so, but nothing really on this major scale. And it seems that the last straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, was with the decision that was really made to elevate the situation, and the protesting side of the game obviously was made a couple of weeks ago with this whole European Super League thing, the announcement of it, the realization that United were one of the major contributors to its creation, before of course performing a U-turn and pulling out of the whole thing entirely, along with the other five the other English clubs that were to be declared involved in this. And as I say, protests have been made over the years against the Glazers, but nothing really on this major scale. This protest is obviously head and shoulders above the rest, actually storming onto the pitch, infiltrating Old Trafford hours before a game was to be played. And not just any game, but one of the biggest games in the English footballing calendar, Manchester United versus Liverpool. Big game in the English footballing calendar, and a massive fixture on both a European and a global scale too. And for United fans to have got this game cancelled is a huge statement, and should be seen as much and heard as much and echoed around the world. And it should make not just the Glazers sit up and take notice, but also the owners of every single club that were going to be dragged into this European Super League, that fans aren't quiet no more. They want fan power back into their clubs, and I can only see this elevating and possibly getting bigger as these owners continue to take charge. Obviously, since the rise of the plans of a European Super League, and then all of a sudden the very swift downfall of it, fans of all 6 of the clubs that were said to be involved in it have protested against their owners in some ways or others. And I would easily and strongly suspect that they will continue for some time to come. But seeing how United escalated their protests to get their message out there, it's entirely possible that similar demonstrations could happen again and again in the very near future. And as it's been stated by myself and by others, you get a huge group like this together, of course, some people are going to overstep the mark, but you can't tarnish a whole community for the behaviour of a small number of people who have done some stupid, thuggish, hooligan actions. But it's possible that this is what the media may take away from this. And, you know, I've said, like a lot of others, that various media outlets were all on the fan side for their own selfish agendas when obviously this whole European Super League plan came out. We all knew that media had their own selfish agendas, but aligned themselves with the fans anyway. And for the time being, it wasn't too bad to have that kind of support for fans. And we all kind of felt that as soon as the Super League collapsed, that they would pull the parachute on it all too, and leave fans to fight their own battles against their clubs, against their owners, and all the other kind of fallout that was to come from the news of the collapse of the Super League. And that's exactly what's happened here. Take Sky, who were obviously upset that they couldn't broadcast the game yesterday. It made for some awkward TV as they tried to improvise some TV filler time, which included some thoughts and opinions from one Graham Souness in particular, who clearly had no idea about the history of the friction between the Glazers and the United supporters dating back many years, even when United were winning trophies. And what transpires is the two teams that they don't play their scheduled game, of course, arguably the biggest game in club football on a global level, like I mentioned, and it has to be rearranged, messing up their schedule, and so they miss out and can now have opportunity to turn on those that forced this game to be rearranged, pretended to have their backs and supported them throughout this entirety of Super League plans, and billionaire greedy owners and so on and so forth, because it suited their agenda, it suited what was best for them, that best for media, best for Sky, so on and so forth. And, you know, this now opens the door for other media outlets, regardless of who they are, to have the same opportunity. They see the reports of violence, they see the reports of thuggish and hooligan-like behaviour, and can now have something new and shiny to talk about, and obviously turn on the fans that they supported not too long ago. Following the announcements of the game, the Premier League did send out a statement on the postponement of the game. The Premier League released a statement saying that we understand and respect the strength of feeling, but condemn all acts of violence, criminal damage and trespass, especially given the associated COVID-19 breaches. Again, I agree to an extent with what they're saying, but again, let's not overshadow this. Let's not take the actions of certain people and have that completely overshadow what United fans as a whole were trying to achieve and what the majority of them attempted to achieve, and let that take centre stage. They went on to say that fans have many channels by which to make their views known, but the actions of a minority seen today have no justification. Well, fans have been using these types of channels to express their opinions, to express their views for many years, whether it be through fan channels on YouTube, pages on Facebook, hashtags on Twitter, images on Instagram, and other forms of media on various social media outlets and sites. They've all been used by fans in the past to voice their opinions, to voice their views. But they can easily get lost in debate amongst other fans. They can easily get watered down. They can easily get swept aside by those in power, whether it be those in power at the clubs that they are looking at trying to make a change in, because they obviously love and support them and are diehard fans of them clubs, or in this kind of scenario, even by the Premier League themselves, who again should take part of the blame in this instance. They go on to say that we sympathise with the police and stewards who had to deal with a dangerous situation that should have no place in football. Again, to a certain point, I agree. I agree that certain fans have overstepped the mark. And again, we're not condoning or supporting any kind of thuggish, hooligan, stupid behaviour of a select minority that have decided to completely overstep their boundaries, so to speak. But don't, again, let it be the highlight of this demonstration. Don't let it take centre stage. And look, in my opinion, from my perspective, from my point of view on the protest, I admire the United fans that have protested in the correct way, the large majority of them, for doing this. I applaud the majority that were peaceful, that were there for one clear message and not to kind of have it all overshadowed with violence and thuggish behaviour. I applaud them for getting their message out there by this entire demonstration, and fair play to every United fan on this that did it in the correct and right way. And I seem to be echoing the views and opinions of the majority of football fans when I say that I've also seen these protests and also kind of agree, but that's just the way it goes. I said it before and I'll say it again, it's been incredible these past few weeks to watch how football fans have all clubbed together and been united and are against these owners that have attempted to muscle in on our sport, on our game, with their money and try to change it to a style and a system that suits them in a selfish way. And I urge this to continue, not the violent side obviously, but I urge the protesting side to continue. I urge Arsenal fans to go against Kroenke. I urge Liverpool fans against FSG, obviously myself included. I urge, all the other fans that are involved in these Super League plans that have got owners that clearly do not have the club's or the fans' best interests at heart to continue with these protests. And I hope to see more. United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, Man City in particular, all rallying together with the same goal of getting some sort of fan power back into their game, back into their club. There's a long way to go, of course. This was possibly just the first step in a refreshed and regenerated battle, but it just proves that fans have had enough of being pushed around and mocked and taken for granted for many years. But of course, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. I may not have explained it in the best way, I admit, but I hope some of the points that I was trying to make got across to you all. But I want to obviously know what you guys think. What did you make of the protest yesterday, the game being cancelled? Where do you think this goes from here? What do you think the aftermath of these protests will be? Do they escalate further and spread around the country? Do they obviously go and kind of replicate it elsewhere. Those kind of things. I'd love to know your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions down in the comment section below. I'm sure that all make for interesting reading. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video.